and the level's a little too high, so we want it to kind of cut back a little bit. Alright, so that sounds pretty good. Now we go ahead and we right click and copy this pattern to the track, disable the pattern selection tool, go back to the sequencer, and we're going to allow the sequencer to now play the beat as well as the rest of the notes in the lane sequence, so you can hear them. So go ahead and let's play that through. So alright, so now you have an alternating hi-hat with the patterns. If you notice here, it's a continuous pattern here with an alternated pattern here, then it goes to a continuous pattern here, and then an alternated pattern here, and vice versa as it goes through the hi-hats. Now you can do all kinds of different direction and different kinds of beat flow based on your hi-hat and your closed and open strategies, as I call them, in the sound that you're trying to create. A lot of people just use a closed hat and just completely sequence the whole entire thing out for 32 straight note sequences, and it gives you that continuous feel of the hi-hat being closed. That's very common in a lot of different hip-hop songs that are out there, but for this tutorial we're just kind of playing with the music, and that's the whole idea behind this tutorial, is to basically just be able to get familiar with the software, be continually creative with it, and just play with some different sounds till you find something that sounds great. We're also going to add the shuffle here on both of these, so that way that the swinginess applies to the whole entire beat. And that pretty much rounds out how to do the beats and all senses of that. Now, one thing that I do need to touch on is how to write notes in the note lanes. If you didn't catch that from before we put in a loop and add a loop into it and add a little bit of a delay, I want to go over that with you real quick. So that way you have a better understanding on how to write notes in the sequencer and the storyline writer. We're going to go ahead and set this back to the song and everything back to default. Now these tools that are up here are usable by your keyboard: Q, W, E, and R. Q being the selection tool, W being the writer, E being the eraser, and R being the razor/cut tool. This will allow you to go in and make changes to the beats as you necessarily see. To keep it easy, simple, and quick, I'm going to go ahead and just choose the claps. So left click with the selection tool, the arrow, selects it one time. Double clicking on it brings in the sequencer for me to write the notes. As indicated before, if you slide the zoom tool down here below, you get a little bit easier way to read them. I usually keep it so that I can see the whole entire screen, and you'll see that it's indicative by 16 per bar. So one full bar, 1 to 2, has 16 notes in the lane, indicated by the 16 snap. As you change this, it goes from bar to half to 4 to 8 to 8T, which is triple or triplicate, to 16 to 16 triplicate, to 132 to 132 triplicate, and 164th. Now, as you go farther on down here, you get the faster, more repetitive sound, quicker note response, attack, and resonance. So we're just going to stay with 116 because it's not as complicated. So, alright, to write a note, now that we've got the writer in, we're going to go ahead and select the pencil tool, or W, and you can then choose the lane, in this case, which we have clap. See, move your mouse over top of this, and click left time. You can see it indicate by the meter on the left, as well as what you hear from your speakers. So that's the clap, and each one of these orange boxes indicates where the clap is going to be put in. So we could put 2 more claps right here and play through the loop. So what I did is I basically put in 2 more claps at the very end, so that way, just like at the end of the last beat in the kick, I had 2 that went da-dun-ch, and that brings it around. That also lets the listener know that it's coming around to the next part of the loop. I did the same thing with the clap to kind of throw it off and give it that swingy feel. I'm also going to take off the shuffle on one of these because it sounds like it's swinging too much. Alright, so that's how you basically write them in with the pencil tool and slagging the indicator position indicator at the top to the left. You can start the loop again between 1 and the 5, which indicates the 4-bar sequence that we have here today. And you have your 16 bars listed right here by your pencil tool. So we go in here like this, and you can see it. And by clicking the pencil tool or clicking the W key on your keyboard, you can then write in your notes on how they sound. We can also hit the E key and erase these last two and make them only be 1/32. So I'll give you an understanding of how that sounds. We click the pencil tool, and we go ahead and click right here, and it'll only light up half of it. So now, if we click on the indicator with a left click on the 3 and press play, alright, so the clap is not so full, but it's just as fast. And notice when you do that, when you drop it down to 130 seconds, your velocity also does reduce a little bit. And by increasing your velocity is how hard the actual clap hits. So you can actually draw in these velocities and bring them up. So if you left click on here, you can draw it up just as much as the rest of them. Or you can leave them down by left clicking wherever you want. See how that works? Just like that. And for this little sequence, we're just going to leave it on the lower end, so that kind of gives that dramatic feel like it's coming to the end and it's going to cycle through again. And that's how you write a note on the note lane. Once you're done with that, you click the selection tool, unclick edit mode, and it goes back to your lane sequence storyline writer. You can then grab the position indicator by left clicking and dragging it back to 1, which then indicates you're going to restart the loop so that way you can play it. Okay, now that we've got the beat, the hi-hat, the clap, and the basic fundamentals on how to write notes in the note lane of your sequencer, we're going to go ahead and add a loop using the Rex loop indicator or loop player. By doing this, we're also going to introduce a small delay or a phaser that allows you to create a pitched roll up from a quiet to a trending loud of the loop. So we'll go ahead and go with that. So Alt Tab, bring yourself back into your combinator window and your rack window. We're going to minimize this rack, and we're going to right click, create a new combinator, and we're going to call this Rexy Loop, just for fun. Alright, so now that we got the Rex Loop named in the combinator, we're going to right click, go create, and you're going to use Dr. Octorex. Dun 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 dun. Alright, so now that we've got the Octorex computer playing programmer here, we're going to go ahead and drop the window so we can see what the loop looks like as we load it. We're going to go ahead and initialize it because I really don't like anything that comes by default, and we're going to go ahead and go look for a loop. And when you initialize it, like I say, it does everything just like it did in the redrum computer, sets everything back to 0, and lets you tweak everything the way you need it to, so that way the sound comes out the way you want it to sound. This is very very useful in creating loops and creating a more original sound, so that way you don't have your notes in your note lane in case you're copying them, like you see here with this copy loop to track. You don't accidentally copy something that's up here versus down here. So, alright, so now that we've got that initialized, we're going to go ahead and find ourselves a loop. So we click on the folder icon, and it's going to show you some of the up-tempo loops, and you can go into music loops here by the Reason Factory Sound Bank, or we can use a drum loop, an instrument loop, or a percussion loop from the Dr. Rex folder. Excuse me for the hiccups, I apologize. For this, we're going to go ahead and use a music loop, and we're going to go variable tempo, we're going to go up tempo, I'm going to choose something that sounds kind of fun and works good. Okay, we're going to use the Daft chord loop. So that one shows down here. You can play it through, and that will play it at the beat that we have it at, which is 110. And you can change different things like the oscillation pitch, the mod wheel, the velocity of the loop as it's going through, and we can even set LFOs if we want to give it that kind of wobble effect, but we'll go into that in later tutorials. So we're going to go ahead and left click the run so that we can stop the loop from playing in the loop playback, and then we're going to copy the loop to the track using the Rex press copy loop to track button. To ensure that it doesn't play when we're actually playing the loop in the sequencer, we're going to left click this loop playback so that this doesn't key up as well as your sequencer does in the background. So we will Alt Tab into the sequencer, and you will see that it has a 4-bar loop for the entire loop. So what we will want to do is we will want to zoom this out slightly, move our position indicator for the right flag of the loop back to 9, giving us an 8-bar loop, And we're going to go ahead and left click one time, selecting each of the beats, and hit the control key on your keyboard to select multiples, and then hit control C, which will automatically bring the position indicator to the 5 or the end of the pattern and allow you to control V. So now we have duplicated the beat from the first original combinator all the way across to the last part of the 8-bar in the combinator, or the sequencer, my bad. So now that we have it for 8 bars, we have a full double 8-bar loop. We need to make sure that we do the same thing with the loop that is coming down here. Okay, so now that we have copied the first part of the Rex loop to the track, as you see by the red indicated box on the screen, we're going to go ahead and duplicate that. So we've left clicked it one time, we're going to control C. It then moves the position indicator to the exact right of the end of the loop, and then we will hit control V, and it now has created 2 copies of the loop for the whole entire 8-bar sequence in the sequence writer. We are going to then make a little bit of a change real quick, so we Alt-Tab back to the computer for the combinator where the loop is now located, and we're going to go ahead and left click on the Rex player. You'll see a light blue line show up at the very bottom. We're going to right click and we're going to create a ECF42, that's an ECF42 envelope controlled filter. And what this is going to do is it's going to allow us to create a quiet to loud increase of the loop, indicating like a start to the song or a start to the sequence. So now that we've created it, it shows up underneath the Rex, but we're going to go ahead and move it up, and by pressing tab you'll see how everything coming out of the Rex goes into the filter, out of the filter into the combinator, from out of the combinator into the M-Class mastering mixer, 16x2 at the top, 16x4, 16x2, whatever you want to call it. Okay, tab back, brings us back into the filter. We're going to go ahead and change the envelope amount to 0, so you have 0, 0, 0 all the way across, and your frequency set about 64, which is about right. We can go 68. If you hold down the shift key you have better control of it. We'll leave it at 65. And what we're going to do now is we are going to go ahead and show programmer by left clicking on show programmer. You'll see the filter show up here. Left click one time, go to rotary 1, which is this rotary knob you see here, and we're going to go ahead and set this to frequency. So what that's going to do is that's going to automate the low-pitched increase from low to high, creating a quiet to loud entrance of the actual loop. And we will now left click show programmer now that we've enabled it for the filter. We're going to right click on rotary 1, sorry for that, and edit automation. That is now going to let you automate in the writing sequencer in the sequencer window for the storyline of the track. So we will Alt Tab and go back, and you will see rotary 1 indicated right here. So now we left click on the rotary 1, which highlights, and we will now be able to go in here, double click on this one right here. Oh, sorry. We need to write it in, so we pencil in, and we are going to go for the whole entire 4 bars of the first part of the loop. Click the selection tool, or Q, double click, and bring it into the track. And then for this part of the sequence, we're going to go ahead and press double click on the beat. You'll see now that we have the automation for the sequence of the loop, and in this case we want to go to here, and you'll notice that it starts with the rotary connection of what's being automated, and in this case we want to set the value all the way up to 127, and you're going to hit the pencil key and select the first one right here at about 38 Hertz, and we're going to go all the way over here to 127 at the very end, creating a line, and then pressing the select key, taking it out of edit mode by hitting Control E or selecting that, and we are going to drag this back for the right approximation of the actual length. So in this case it's only going to go for the first 4 bars of the loop. So now we drag the position indicator back and you can listen. And it gets progressively louder. Okay, so now you have the beat, the hi-hat, clap, snap, snare, and the roll, as well as a Rexy loop we've gotten from the Dr. Octorex. And I've now shown you how to use the envelope filter, which then creates the low increase to the high output, creating what I call a quiet to loud intro, usually used before starting the arrangement of a song. We will Alt-Tab real quick and do some minor adjustments to make it sound a little bit louder. We're going to increase the volume slightly. We are also going to right click on the Rexy loop and we're going to install a M-Class equalizer for this, and we're also going to install a maximizer. And if you click tab, it'll show you that it now outputs everything from the Rex into the maximizer, out of the maximizer into the equalizer, and then from the EQ out into the filter, and then from the filter up to the combinator. It's exactly what we want. So that looks good. Alright, so we want to enhance some of the loop sounds that we get. So we're going to go ahead and play the sequence, and you can see that it's coming through here, indicated by these. And we are going to set some soloing. So we click the solo key, and that lets everything else keep playing, but it allows us only to hear the loop, so we can dial it in and make it sound better. So in this case, what we want to do is we want to increase this so it is a little bit louder. See how it gets a little bit louder, but we don't want it to clip. So watching for the red, at the highest peak performance, we don't want it to go any higher than what it really is. But we want it to be prominent, kind of like that. Alright, and we're going to set an EQ in here so that way we can filter off a lot of that low, so that way that the low doesn't supersede the kick or the attack from the beat, the bass and the beat. So we're going to go ahead and go 30 to 60, and we're going to set this to about 90 hertz and solid that out by dropping it down, making it kind of wide. At about 0.99. And then we're going to also adjust this EQ to bring it up and make it a little bit more punchy. So I'll drop that down to about 860. Bring up the gain. Set it to be wide so it's all across the sample. And there you go. A much fuller sound that doesn't conflict with the kick. But it has a really good tone and it does not clip out. So let's go ahead and unsolo it. Alright, so now you have a good loop, you have it mastered, you have a automation set in there to let it create a low, climbing, quiet to loud approach, as well as we've used the M-Class maximizer and equalizer to shape the sound. So now that we've done that, that covers all of the basic fundamentals of putting a beat and a loop in there. We'll go through real quickly, if you don't mind, on how to do a quick arrangement so that way that it sounds kind of decent, so that way it doesn't sound like we're just completely repeating and repeating and repeating. So we minimize, or Alt-Tab, and we will go in here and say we want just the loop to start out. So we move the flag over to here, turn off loop, and we will copy. We're actually going to we will delete this snare, or this clap, and the beat, so you only have the clap, and then we'll delete that. Oops. Control Z, Control C, Control V. Delete this. And then control these. Slide it back. So basically what I've done is I've basically left the loop to start here. And the loop starts crescendoing closed, and then it goes here. Then you get the next part, which is the kick. And then these then carry in, so that way you get a fuller sound. Actually, we've done that wrong. That's close though, but not the same way. Control C, Control V, Control C, Control V, Control C, Control V. And then we have this, this, and this, which are Control C, Control V. So now you have basically a sequence of a song. So we press play by clicking or bringing this over, so we can have this as 16 bars. So now we have a 16 bar track for an intro. We drag the position indicator back to the left, indicating the start, and we press play. That's not too bad, but I don't like the clap being in there too much, so let's tweak that out real quick. We'll take the clap out and we'll start the clap and the rest of the part of the track in the next sequence. So go ahead and press. Alright, so now that's the basic fundamentals of how the actual song plays together, and a little bit of a brief arrangement to show you how it can be done. You can add other things like other parts of the redrum kick and note editing, as well as adding different instruments in here to create different effects, to create substantial drops, substantial intros, substantial shaping, and all other kinds of different editing techniques. We're going to do one last thing right here, which I had indicated in the beginning. This is part of the default mastering suite combo. By default, everything is pretty much off. We can set this to on now, so that way that it can give it a feel. But we're going to go ahead and change the suite that's in here to something a little bit more different. And M-Class has some patches already put into it. We are going to go ahead and set ours to the hip hop, which pre-dials all of the devices inside the mastering suite to a specific level, so that it actually applies it to the rest of your instruments. Now if we go back to the loop sequencer, set the indicator back to the beginning and hit play, sounds much fuller and more precise. And that is how you do it. And that concludes our tutorial on the basic fundamentals of putting a beat, laying in a loop, adding in different kind of envelope filters, adjusting your combinator suites, and adding different kinds of classifications to your M-Class mastering suite of the initial combinator, which is loaded when you first start the tutorial. I hope that helps you. If you have any questions, feel free to email us at the email link down below, which is geektechnique@gmail.com, or feel free to leave comments and other responses to your videos down below. We encourage all kinds of responses and video responses of what you created. After all, Reason is all about creating audio and music production to your creativity, and that's what we here at Beats on Deck, in collaboration with Plugged In 2010, strive to push, promote, and succeed with. If you have any more tutorials that you would like to go to, check out Boy in a Band on the YouTube channels under youtube.com/user Boy in a Band. Has a lot of great techniques on how to use Reason 5, different samples, as well as different sample packs. Also check out his website, www.boyinaband.com. And we here at Beats on Deck, as well as Plugged In 2010, thank you for viewing our tutorial, and have a nice day.